We start with the big headline that sent shares of Apple to all-time highs. The company reportedly hitting the accelerator on self-driving cars. Let's get to Phil LeBeau for the details. Hi, Phil.
Hi, Courtney. You know, the stock really took off in the middle of the day, hitting that all-time high after a report on Bloomberg said that the company is targeting a potential debut in 2025 of a fully autonomous vehicle, and that work on that autonomous vehicle has been accelerating. As you take a look at Apple over the last year, and the stock has had an interesting ride over the last year. We should point out that we did reach out to Apple, and as is almost always the case when it comes to anything Apple car related or any work being done on the car, the company declined to comment. Let's point out what we're talking about here in terms of a fully autonomous vehicle, because where we are right now and where the industry is headed, wildly different. Right now, we have level 3 autonomy. That means partial self-driving. I cannot stress this enough. I hear this all the time from people. They say, well, Tesla's autopilot can drive anywhere. No, it cannot. They may be working on that, but there is no fully self-driving vehicle out on the road right now. There are many that have level 3 autonomy. The next level up would be a high level of autonomy, almost to the point where you don't need to have a steering wheel in the vehicle, but it's not 100%. Level 5, which is what Apple is targeting, is complete autonomy. In other words, you get in, it drives. It would be ideal for a robo-taxi service, or you could see individuals owning a fully autonomous vehicle, though many believe the robo-taxi business is more likely to be the area where you first see these vehicles. What does this mean not only for shares of Apple, but for other autonomous vehicle plays? These are just a few out there. There is Tesla, and yes, they've done a lot of work, especially when it comes to the autopilot. They would love to eventually have a fully autonomous vehicle. They're working on that. General Motors, we know what they're doing with their subsidiary Cruise, and then you've got Ford with Argo, both of them making big strides when it comes to fully autonomous vehicles. And I also put up Aurora Innovation here. That stock moving up more than 8% today. Chris Urmson is the founder and CEO of Aurora Innovation. They are developing the technology for a fully autonomous vehicle. One of many companies that are out there doing this. Bottom line is this, Courtney. Anytime you talk about an Apple car, gets everybody excited about could it actually happen. But keep in mind, we were first reporting on Apple developing a car, I want to say back in 2016, 2017. I remember somebody did a report and they said, hey, by 2020, you're going to see an Apple car. We don't see an Apple car. And by the way, Andrew Ross Sorkin, he asked Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, about their work on the Apple car just a few days ago. And what did he say? We keep a few things up our sleeves. We're not ready to announce anything.
We don't have those flying hoverboards yet either, Phil. While we have you, though, I do want to ask you about a tweet that was sent from Ford's Jim Farley saying that they have a plan to make 600,000 electric vehicles by the end of 2023, which I think is 2 times what their target had been previously. Can you tell us more about that?
Nothing more than what he said in that tweet, and he was doing an interview earlier today with a trade publication where he doubled down on Ford's commitment for electric vehicles. Look, they've got the F-150 Lightning coming. That's going to give a huge boost to their sales. You've already got the Mustang Mach-E that is out there. They also have the E-Transit, which is their commercial vehicle. That's coming online. Jim Farley is ultra aggressive when it comes to the development of electric vehicles. And so this target that he's put out there for 600,000, that would make them, if they can hit that target, they would probably be number 2 in the world in terms of electric vehicle sales by the end of 2023. Obviously, Tesla is number 1. They're likely going to stay number 1 for some time. A lot has to happen between now and then, but I'm not surprised to see this from Jim Farley and his team. They are doubling down when it comes to EVs.
Yeah, that's right. Ford doesn't want to be forgotten in that electric vehicle discussion. Phil, thank you so much for covering it all for us here tonight. Dan Nathan, I'm going to start with you. Let's talk about Ford. What do you make of what's going on here in shares of Ford?
Oh, I think Phil said it just correctly. I mean, they are going to be super aggressive. They know that is the path forward. They're focusing on SUVs and pickup trucks. I think when we were talking about Rivian's debut last week, that 70% of the cars sold in America were SUVs and pickups, and that's where they're leaning into. So that makes a lot of sense. I know the whole panel has been all over that trade here. I do think the news with Apple is really interesting. Phil also mentioned, that Ford has this deal with Argo and with Lyft for ride-hailing autonomous. I mean, there's other ways to play this. If you ask me, are you buying Apple right here, where somebody was, they like this headline here, up nearly 3% on the day at a new 52-week high, an all-time higher, I'd say, okay, fine. I mean, they're probably as good a bet as anybody to make an autonomous car. Whether they have fleets available in 2025 is another story. I don't think analysts or investors anytime soon are going to be modeling their numbers going forward based on this sort of speculation.
Tim, how about you? Do these headlines out of Apple excite you, give you another reason to look at the stock?
Well, it's
I'm long
interesting
the stock.
because
I mean, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
That's all right. Tim first, and then Karen.
Okay, I'd rather listen to Karen, but all right, here we go. So I think, typically with the story around Apple, especially in the last 5 years, it's been hardware or software or services company. And the conversation today really, again, is the debate over whether this is actually going to be transportation as a service and where Apple's going to continue to rope you in. And that's where you should be excited. But I think what Dan said is you don't chase the headline. I wouldn't chase this headline either, especially after an 8% move in Apple in 4 days. I think it points to the excitement, and I would point it right back to Detroit again. And GM was interestingly down today. But GM's going to have 1 million autonomous vehicles by 2030. They say they're going to have a autonomous of some kind, even for availability for some fleet services by late in the decade. The fact that they've been hard at work at this, and the fact that Ford does have the expectation on where they're going to be on EV vehicles, I just think it means that Detroit's in a much better place, at least to compete. I'm not saying that they're Tesla here, but again, everything we're saying about these car companies right now and pointing at Tesla cars on the road and the number of deliveries this year and what their market share is should remind you that Tesla is just a car company, right? Or are these other car companies that are going to be doing EV more than what they are? I still think there's a massive valuation mismatch. And if you're getting excited on a day like today about Apple, it's in the share price, but it's not in Detroit.
Fair enough. Karen, I want to get your thoughts.
Well, I agree with pretty much everything Tim said. I think, though, we've heard, as Phil said, this Apple story a couple of times. And in the past, I think that it was more, I don't know, this sounds maybe more real, but in the past I thought, wow, this is going to be really a CapEx, an enormous venture CapEx. And do we want them to spend their money that way? Now, in this environment, with EVs trading as they are, anything remotely related to that gets, buzz for the stock, and shareholders like it. I, like Tim, am interested in the sort of the mind of the car, Apple controlling the mind of the car, the actually making the vehicle itself. That's a really capital-rich endeavor, although they do seem to have endless capital. I'm long Apple. I'm not in it for that at all, but I guess these days it's a positive, but I wouldn't buy Apple right now for this.
Guy, what do you think? Does this make Apple more attractive in the long term? We certainly know, as Phil told us, we're in level 3. We're not close to level 5, and this is the real universe, not the metaverse, but it kind of all sounds like a video game. What do you make of the Apple move potentially into cars?
I'm going to hang out at level 1 if that's okay. Over the last 2 days, Apple's announced an autonomous car, which I will never buy. I mean, clearly I'm not their target audience. And yesterday they announced that you can fix your Apple devices at home, which clearly is not for me either. So good for Apple, 0 for 2 in the Adami house. In terms of the stock, the tell was on October 12th for you Rounders fans. Everybody's got a tell. Well, John Malkovich had it in that movie, and the tell came on October 12th. At 4:05, Apple announced they were going to cut production of Apple iPhone 13s by 10 million due to chip shortages. The stock was trading 141. The next day, I think the stock actually closed higher. That was the tell. We had talked about it. The tell today is the fact that it traded close to 135 million shares, 2 times normal volume. So just like you probably were buying it that day on that tell, I think today is the day you maybe take some money off the table and look for a pullback back into the high 140s.